Dad made me learn to drive in a Hilux manual. Because he's like, if you can drive a stick, you can drive anything.
You're gonna drive a stick.
Hello.
G'day.
How are you?
Oh, pretty damn good.
Welcome to the conversation car.
Oh, it's great to be here in the hot seat.
What a day for it.
Beautiful.
Day off though.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-season, of course.
Mhm.
But what does a day off in the life of Darcy Moore
Well,
generally look like?
half of it's about not looking after myself and not getting sick and
Yeah.
resting up.
Yeah.
So I love to tip into some recovery. I love a sauna or a cold plunge. The calendar finds a way to fill up. So it's been a bit of a challenge trying to find time for myself on my days off lately.
How do you juggle that balance then? Of course, of looking after yourself and making sure you personally are doing everything right as an athlete, but also as the captain of one of the biggest clubs in the land, you've got a multitude of different things that you need to think about at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. Normally it's I'll get to the end of a training day, a main training day, which is our big day from 7 in the morning till 4. You almost just do you think where am I at? What do I need this week? You're always thinking from the game backwards. How long have we got till we play? What do I need? Do I need to sort of restore myself, free up your mental space? And that's really the challenge of it, to be honest, that I'm learning, is having that sort of self-awareness.
How did you navigate it early days? It was being captain and a leader, something that was always on the radar, but I guess did it come naturally to you, or have you had to learn what best works any given week, any given day?
Yeah, I think try and just be true to yourself in the role. It's you have a lot of decisions that you have to take and responsibility you have to weigh up, but at the end of the day, I feel like I'm in the role because people trust my judgment, and I think understanding that and trusting yourself goes a long way, for sure.
Well, as an outsider looking in, you're absolutely nailing it. Early in your captaincy, of course, a few years in. But take us back to a youngster, a young Darcy Moore.
As a young kid, absolutely obsessed with it and just loved it so much. I have memories, really, really vivid memories of Dad when he used to coach at Victoria Park when the club would train there, and he'd sort of coach Josh Fraser as the ruck coach, and I used to kind of play around in the gym and watch training all the time there. And I remember going to games, and Mick Malthouse would always let me sort of stay in the rooms longer than everyone else. He'd sort of kick everyone out and let me stay and that sort of stuff. So I have those memories, and they're really sort of special and powerful. But then I think when I became a teenager, it's probably when the dream starts to come alive. I suppose it's when you've played with guys who start getting drafted. Yeah, I suppose it gave me enough of a taste of it that I felt like it was somewhere that I wanted to be and something I wanted to do.
What's the best piece of advice that your dad has ever given you? He's a very wise man.
He is the best piece of advice. He always says, used to say, everything follows performance. So don't forget what you're there to do is to perform. And then a lot of it is around that he used to give me advice on a lot, and sort of still does, is around just identity. As an athlete, sometimes when you have a large fan base and people feel really connected to what you do on the field, a bit hard to handle, especially as a young person. So I think he always just encouraged me to have really close friends that have known me a long time, and stay close to them, and family as well, and just try and have a balance as much as you can. It's obviously a demanding job, but try and have a bit of a balance so that those pressures and that attention can be a little bit easier to handle if you keep it all in perspective.
As a young man entering the system, it is a big shock to the system.
Oh, massively. Massively, it's a big shock to the system. All of a sudden you're sharing a locker room with Dane Swan and Scott Pendlebury and Travis Cloke, guys I've grown up idolising. It takes a while to get used to, for sure. And there's that aspect of it, and then there's just the pure physical aspect of it. So it's just completely exhausting. You come into the club and start pre-season, and you're on your feet from 7 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, training, doing multiple training sessions, and then repeating that 5-6 times a week. It's just absolutely exhausting. You're 18 years old. Can be a bit of a burden on young shoulders at times. And I think it's important to kind of remember that, especially now as the captain, and 10 years in my 10th season to remember what these young guys go through when they walk in the door and how long it takes to adjust to it, and I suppose on some level you never really fully adjust to it.
Conversations in cars. I think we do. We spend so much time in our cars. And I want to particularly touch on the early years, your parents driving you to trainings and games, and I guess what are your earliest memories of those moments? I mean, for me, I was a netballer. The times that I spent with my mum and my dad, driving me to state trainings or driving me to matches, they're some of my fondest memories as a youngster. What about you?
It's funny, I think about like a few images come to mind, like being in the front, I had the Melways open, turning the pages between page 14 and 103, because for some reason that's how Melways works. On the way to footy, wearing my kit at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning, driving out to, Greensborough or some Park Orchards or somewhere on the outskirts of Melbourne, driving to the game. Memories of that. And then I remember Dad had a big Toyota Land Cruiser, and we used to file into that, and he'd drive me to games as well. And Dad was always a bit better when he'd drive us, because there'd always be a stop at the service station on the way.
Chocolate milk or something.
Yeah, he loved those. They're not around anymore, but do you remember those drinks, Oasis?
Oh yeah.
They're like so sugary.
Yes.
I don't know if they were a sports drink or iced tea or what they were.
Combination of both.
I remember I used to love those, and I used to love My Zone. I don't know if My Zone's, I don't think it's still around anymore. My Zone after footy.
That was your jam?
It was always a treat. And Dad would tuck into something rogue, like a polywaffle or something like that, or a wagon. We loved a wagon wheel. I loved driving with Dad, because he'd always get a treat on the way home. But yeah, you're so right. It's like, you don't think about it much, but the car as a space is like one where so many memories are shared, and you drive home with the thrill of victory, or the ping of disappointment, I suppose. So it's they're important spaces, especially when you're coming through as a youngster and you can't drive yourself.
Did you learn to drive in the Land Cruiser?
I did, yeah.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
So I got stitched up. So you're 16, you just get your L plates.
Yeah.
I remember my dad. So all of my friends were leaving school in these cute little, Yaris's or Corollas or automatics. Dad made me learn to drive in a Hilux manual. Because he's like, if you can drive a stick, you can drive anything.
You're gonna drive a stick.
Yeah, so all my friends are just like steadily cruising out of the school car park, and there's me just like bunny hopping my way.
Oh my God.
It's so embarrassing.
They're all down here, you're up here in your big truck.
Yeah, and the
That's
hill
so
starts.
Funny.
They would get me.
Oh God, that's great. That is great.
You as a captain need to obviously drive the complete buy-in from every single person at that football club. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a constant challenge, one that like senior players, experienced guys are constantly discussing and trying to find new ways to do it. The best football teams, I mean, it sounds really obvious, but the best football teams are the ones that are the most selfless and that are the most connected, and young players coming in and feeling like they don't have to be the star, you don't have to come in and take over and dominate, you just have to do your job and find a role in this team. We are so instinctive and connected, and we play as a team. So I think it's really become a way of operating for us. It's become second nature, but you've constantly got to refine it and, remind yourself how much we value it, because sometimes without even noticing, you can sort of slip away from the team's needs and not understand it, especially younger players. So that is the challenge of leadership, is an environment, a team environment, or a team space where people can come in and just do their job and play to their strengths, and hopefully they shine in the meantime just doing that.
What does your game day look like?
I love coming home to a clean house. So I often wash the sheets, vacuum the floor, do all the annoying jobs. So there's a little bit of Marie Kondo in that.
Just getting a bit of a clean freak then?
Getting that. A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I'm not too neurotic, but definitely like things clean when I rock up to the game.
How do you, I guess, juggle as well the physical and the mental side of things? That's a big one. There's a lot of focus around mental health now, and I'm glad that we're seeing a lot more of that over the last kind of 10 years or so in the AFL environment. How do you personally best manage it?
I think being an athlete makes you already pretty self-aware. You're constantly reflecting on performance, approach, energy levels, how does your body feel? You're sort of always thinking pretty mindfully. It really just becomes a mental game.
Yeah.
So it's about finding those consistent things that anchor you to good performance, but then also having the flexibility to kind of handle whatever comes. I think that's a little bit of the art of performance as well, not to be too rigid. Seeing a psych regularly is really important, like just for my mental health, just for a bit of a download and just a bit of a reflective practice.
And do you do that no matter how you're feeling? Like when you're feeling good, it's still something that you've got top of the list?
Yeah.
When you're feeling bad, obviously?
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I think like there are definitely times where you think, oh, I don't really need to. You're sort of going there going, oh, I don't really need to. But I think, then it's just like equally as important, to understand yourself in those moments as well. So that's really helpful. And then for me, it's like having really deep, meaningful friendships and putting time into my relationship as well with my partner, and my family. It's like I find those things equally as nourishing and as important in learning about yourself and understanding how you are, and leaning on your support network in that way.
Like you just obviously make that a priority and you don't waver on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like not always the fun stuff, but that's sort of part of what it takes to make it work. I think, soreness or tiredness or illness comes up and you just have no choice. You have to prioritize yourself in those moments, which definitely takes a toll on relationships around you, and you just question whether you're, a good enough son or a good enough brother or uncle, whatever it is. You're putting enough time into those relationships, because sometimes as an athlete you have to be pretty selfish, and you just have no choice really. The game's coming, the rush of competition is coming every weekend, whether you like it or not, so you've got to be ready for it and do whatever you have to do to be ready for it. So being able to make those hard choices sometimes is a part of the job, but I think increasingly, and again even in my leadership position, trying to find ways to make it easier for players to do that and not have to make compromises, and try and win on all fronts in that way, I suppose.
Well said. I mean, I'm not a player anymore, but I'm somebody who, sometimes will just bail on my friends when things get busy and I'm tired and I'm exhausted, and then before you know it, you blink and you haven't seen them for 3 months. I feel like it's the part that no one tells you about being an adult, is that like your friendships meaningful friendships anyway, ones that are like, truly mutually supportive and nourishing in that way, take effort and organisation and energy to maintain, and it's not always not as easy as it was when you're at school or see them every day
at uni or a student or whatever it is, and you're catching up every day. It's life gets in the way sometimes, but that's sort of obviously part of the job, and by the same token it's a pretty awesome lifestyle, and there's lots of benefits, so keeping a bit of perspective on that helps as well.
Well, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me in the conversation car. You are an incredible player, as we know. You're an even better person.
Thanks, Abs. Appreciate you getting me back safely. And I think the Magpie Army will be grateful for your driving skills as well.
They certainly will.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the first episode of Conversations in Cars. Follow along this season as we invite amazing guests into the conversation car for some quality chats. We'll see you next time.